Big 12 opener for both Kansas and TCU will be in Lawrence on Saturday. That's Carter Elliott of Sleepers Media. I'm Brian Rauf of Heat Check CBB, breaking down this opener for the Jayhawks and the Horned Frogs. Some intrigue here, certainly. Kansas playing at home, it's a big game. TCU won in Lawrence last year. That was a game that really put TCU on the map and led to the highlight of a very strong season for TCU. Now rematch at Fog Allen. Carter, as we start to look at this game, what's the biggest thing that jumps out to you?
Yeah, well, one, to be honest, TCU has disappointed me up until this point of the season. I had higher expectations of Coach Dixon and the team with they did have some pieces coming back. Obviously, they lose Mike Miles, but they have a guard like Jameer Nelson Jr. coming in. I thought that would be a little bit more of a seamless fit than it actually has been up until this point. That's not to say he has played necessarily awful. I just thought that they would be a little bit better coming to this game. And to speak on that, I haven't seen anything from TCU this season that screams going to Fog Allen and get a win. That's the thing about it. Like last year, I was like, okay, give me Mike Miles, Emmanuel Miller, Lampkin, give me all Michael Pete, give me all those dudes. Those guys aren't scared to go up in the Fog Allen and show that they're good and get a win.
Right.
No one on this TCU team gives me those vibes. I don't feel the vibes from that team.
Would it surprise you to know that TCU has 0 wins over Ken Palm top 100 teams?
That makes it's honestly, I'm surprised it's only a top 100. Like if you extend it to 150, do they have any wins?
They have Arizona State and Hawaii.
Okay, I can't believe Arizona State made the top 100.
Yeah, like this is a weak schedule, week conference schedule for TCU. The big games were Clemson and Nevada, both on neutral courts, and they lost both of them. Like those were the big tickets. They also had the win over Georgetown at the buzzer that shouldn't have counted, but it counted, which I think would have us be talking about TCU in a very different light here, which is why I think this is a big game for them, because it obviously presents the opportunity to change the narrative. But we've seen with Kansas all year long, they're as solid as it comes. I have no doubt about their ability to play at a high level, and there are flaws that we can point to with this Kansas team, from a lack of depth to lack of wing production and three-point shooting, all things that may matter when talking about Kansas and the other top teams in the country and making a long run in March. I don't know if they're going to matter as much in this game, but if what could swing things either for Kansas or potentially lead to a TCU upset?
I mean, on paper, to me, it would be. So I wonder how actually, if I could actually speak to a college coach, I would ask them when they game plan for Kansas, are you like, do I want to stop Dickinson or do I want to stop McCullough? Because in my eyes, I think McCullough is what makes that team really go. Like, I think if McCullough goes off, you're probably going to lose. Speaking as a Michigan State fan and a player and a guy who's watched Michigan basketball a lot of times over this past couple of years, there's so many games you could point to where Hunter Dickinson gets his and they lose basketball games. I don't necessarily see that when Kevin McCullough goes off. So I think that there could be some game planning from Coach Dixon in this game, and maybe making it very like cutting the head off of the snake, and maybe everything else falls apart with McCullough. But also at the same time, you still have DeJuan Harris. You still have, for everything they speak about the depth, like DeJuan Harris is as steady as they come at point guard. He's played a lot of basketball games. And look, for TCU, that 11-2 record, that is so shiny and fun. I'm glad that's great and everything. But when you play, this is the downside of playing a weak non-conference in my eyes. When you play a good non-conference, you can get in conference play and you go in the Fog Allen and you're like, okay, it's a tough place to play. But also on Feast Week, I was playing in Madison Square Garden, or I was playing in Atlantis, or I was playing at one of these tournaments where a big environment or a tough non-conference road game. Right. This is like going from 0 to 100. Like you're going from not playing anybody, not playing any tough environments, to trying to go into Fog Allen and beat Kansas. That's just like, that's asking too much of a team that I just don't think has it. If TCU is competitive in this game, I'll be honest with you, I will feel better about TCU, because I think that Kansas wins this game like running away, to be honest with you.
There's a good point you brought up about McCullough. All of the close games that Kansas has, or the scares that they've gone through, McCullough's been the guy who's gotten them out of those situations, right?
Mm-hmm.
Not so much Dickinson, and Dickinson's played well. I know Harris was probably the one who made those threes at the end of the Kentucky game, but McCullough also had a triple double.
Yeah.
They were tight with Yale for a while, and then McCullough took over that game. They were tight with Indiana. McCullough made plays late in that game. He's the guy. With TCU perspective, last season their style of being able to force turnovers and run as fast as they can and get out in transition, that was what flipped the game in their favor. Was they completely controlled the tempo, made Kansas uncomfortable, and basically ran Kansas off the court, which we don't see happen very often. You have to assume the game plan is the same. The difference is, I don't know, kind of to your point, there isn't the alpha on this TCU team. There isn't somebody who, at least to this point, has shown the ability to get that kind of a run started or build that kind of belief. You have guys who can do that. Jameer Nelson Jr. obviously won. Emmanuel Miller was on the team last year, did it. PV. But Avery Anderson, I think, has been disappointing to me.
Yeah. Even though I will say this, in all my times of watching Avery Anderson, when he does play well, it is against Kansas. I feel like I haven't looked that up, but for some reason I got like Avery Anderson on Oklahoma State against Kansas like in my head for some reason.
Yeah, he's had a couple of good games. I think you need him and Nelson to play at a very high level, a higher level than either of them have really played at this season. And they have to shoot the three well, which TCU has shot the three better this season. They brought in some more shooting threats, but it's still not a strength for them. Right. The last year, if I recall correctly, in that game, they did make a good number of threes too, which was not the case normally for them. And this year's team is better, but they have to play their game, force Kansas to play their game, and play near perfect on the road, which is a tall task. Let's put it that way.
It's a very tall task, and a task that unfortunately I can't give TCU a gold star for. I just don't think it's happening. Like I said, you can find out something about this TCU team in this game because it's the first big one, like for them. So you will, one way or the other, you'll either reiterate the fact that this team just isn't it this year, or you'll be like, maybe this is something there. Other Big 12 teams are watching. It's like, okay, don't let me lax against TCU. If they can go in the Fog Allen and compete, they could go anywhere. So that's on the bright side. With that said, I don't know what the spread or what anything is on this. If it's anything around 15, I will bet it up to like 20. I think that Kansas runs away with this game. I really think they do.
I think Kansas wins convincingly as well. So let's what you mentioned, if TCU plays well, then it'll make you feel better. What does that look like? Is there a score range they have to keep it within for you to feel good? Like what should TCU be targeting?
Honestly, it wouldn't even be a final score thing. If I get to like the second half and it's the under 8 and they're in the game, I'd be like, I feel good about that. And then Kansas does the we're in Fog Allen, we're Kansas, and we also have Kevin McCullough thing, and it starts to pull away. But I feel good if I can just get to that point, do the whole, I'm doing way too much coach speak on these previews, but give me the good old 4-minute segment game talk, and let's just see what happens.
Down.
Yeah, break it down.
The short games. Take the crowd out of it, right?
Right, exactly.
All this stuff. Well, no matter what happens, we'll be back after the Break It Down on Sleepers Media YouTube channel. We'll discuss that, as well as all the other big games from around the country.